Gecko Moria, the former warlord and Kaido's rival, is a part of the Kozuki clan, the same clan who was led by Oda, the man that was killed by Kaido. And man, if Oda does what I think he will do with this will be some of the best writing in the manga's history. As yes, Kozuki Oden, who had a Conqueror's Haki clash with Whitebeard, took a divine departure from Roger, and seen the One Piece treasure of the Willowdeep Void Sentry as he read the poneglyphs and went back to Wano and scarred Kaido before dying a legendary death. Yes, this same man has blood connection to, of course, Moria. And I must say, Moria, you definitely have big shoes to fill, but I believe he will come back to Wano where Yamato and Momonosuke, the wills of Odin, reside. So subscribe to the channel and turn notifications as we do a deep dive on Kozuki Moria and how I think this is actually very crazy when it comes to the end of One Piece. Now, before we even seen Moria in the story, we knew that he was a warlord and we knew that he had a bounty bigger than Luffy. Now, the reason why this was a big deal is because Luffy had a 300 million berry bounty. This was one of the biggest bounties we've seen after Enies Lobby. And the things he did, like taking out Crocodile, taking out Enel, of course, taking on Rob Bellucci, CP9's GOAT, and then he gets a 300 million berry bounty, and then we go to Thriller Bark and there's a warlord with 20 million more than him that's frozen. Mind you, frozen means that Moria's bounty could be way higher if it wasn't frozen, showing that yes, this character was given a lot of hype in the series. One of the also cool things about Moria was some of the legendary warriors he had under his belt, like Oz, the ancient giant, the continent drifter. This guy was insanely powerful, and probably when he was alive. Then there's also Ryuma. They called him the sword god, with the black blade of Shisui. The only other black blade we've seen is Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. And there's Captain John, one of the named renowned pirates of the Rocks Pirates, yes, who made a name for himself after God Valley. So we know that Oda really wanted Moria to have some monsters or some dead monsters under him. Another reason why I feel like Moria had so much aura is when Kuma was trying to help him versus Luffy, and the insult that he felt saying, "This rookie, you want to help me against this rookie?" Mind you, Kuma is one of the top revolutionary commanders and made a name for himself as a captain as well. So to see Kuma say this to Moria, it was kind of an insult to Moria, who back in the days was fighting Kaido. And he said to Kuma, "I'll even smoke you if you have a problem with me." So yeah, Moria definitely has confidence in his ability. It's just that he's washed, yo. It's kind of like those old retired players in sports, like you just don't have what you had back in the day. Now, in my opinion, Moria did have some cool moments of Thriller Bark, though many would disagree with me, like when he of course took the 1,000 shadows and put it in his own body, and then of course he split Thriller Bark's island with one punch. This is some crazy feats. Now, of course, this is all just for show because we all knew 1,000 shadows, he was never going to be able to control all 1,000 shadows for a long period of time. It's like the stamina issue that we've seen in so many other different forms in One Piece. But I'll say this, you splitting an island, I don't care how you did it, and I gotta give props where props is due. Now, when it comes to Moria's lore, we know his entire crew was killed by Kaido. It's the reason why he had an undead crew. But I also think it's also the same reason why he had Oz under him. Oz is an ancient giant blood. We know Kaido's an Oni, but it looks like Kaido has some ancient giant blood connections as well. And then this all connects to, of course, Loki and Herald, who's getting so much hype in Elbaf. So I believe Moria is not as ignorant as people believe. I think he actually knows what he's doing when it comes to gathering strong dead soldiers under him. And I wonder what monsters were under his crew. Like I feel like there were some legendary characters in his crew. If Moria was in his prime, I think he had some monsters in his crew, and that's why people need to respect Moria. Just because he lost to Kaido and got his whole crew killed and then lost to Luffy, people think he's trash. No, he back in the days, there's a reason why Oda made him fight Kaido in Odin's flashback. Yo, this guy was way stronger back in the days. You saw how he looked way more in shape. It kind of reminds you of how Big Mom, how big she was compared to how she looked back in the days. Yo, I'm telling you guys right now, if you're not really watching your health, you're not going to be as strong. Now, I also have to mention, after Moria was defeated, the first thing that all the pirates who got their shadows back, or the people who got their shadow back, said was that Moria was the rival to Kaido. Now, the reason why this is such a big deal is because Kaido is the strongest creature alive. He had pretty much the highest bounty post-time skip of any pirate in the One Piece story. Yes, and he was the closest to Whitebeard's bounty pre-time skip, who also had the strongest title. Kaido is a monster, guys. We've seen him early on in his days as an apprentice on the Rocks crew and how he's developed throughout the story. And that was Moria's rival, and that's what they were saying. And they weren't saying this like as a joke, they were saying it as a serious thing. So Moria does have potential. If he can get back to his prime level, he has potential to be stronger than what we've seen pre-time skip. There's always room for improvement. Look how Crocodile's been perceived since pre-time skip. He looks way more stronger just by the way he's been perceived. So I have a lot of hope for Moria. Now, I must admit, Moria during the war arc was pretty shameful. Yeah, he had cool moments like against Oz Jr., using one of those finishing blows on him. When it comes to Doflamingo, of course, doing as well, and Kuma. And then, of course, interesting moments like Jinbei having pretty much punching him in the throat and nerfing his zombies. Yeah, that wasn't really cool for Moria. But all I want to say is that the war arc was pretty cool to see that Moria was still going to be fighting. He wasn't going to be disposed of after losing to Luffy. Well, I can say disposed of yet. Yep, that's right. Doflamingo tried to kill Moria after the war. And when Moria asked him, was it Sengoku who wants me to kill? Doflamingo said no, much higher. And a lot of people have guesses. Some people think it was the Holy Knights. Some people think it was the Gorosei. Some people think it was Imu because Aokiji, when he was looking at Doflamingo, had Imu in his glasses. So there's a lot of questions. And Doflamingo, they're trying to kill him right now and Nepal down. The assassins are trying to kill him because he knows about the national treasure. Now, I will say this. It could be Kaido as well because Doflamingo was working for Kaido as Joker. That was his moniker. Remember, there was King, Queen, and Jack, and there was also Joker, who was Doflamingo, and he was scared of Kaido. So Kaido could definitely have some bad blood with Moria and said, Doflamingo, kill this guy pretty much for me. We saw Kaido was really upset when Doflamingo lost to Luffy, saying, you're a loser. How could he lose to that guy? So I do think that it could be Kaido, or it could be Venus Drew. We know Venus Drew is from Wano. We know that Kozuki has the name of the guys who made the poneglyphs, which is their arch rival to Venus Drew, who's with the world government. So that could be the reason why Venus Drew wants Kozuki Moria killed. It could be so many different plot lines, and I think Moria is a fascinating character because where you can go with him. Now, I also have to mention Blackbeard. Blackbeard wanting Moria on his crew is interesting, of course. We all know that Blackbeard likes strong fighters, and he definitely respects Moria, and he knows Moria's power because Blackbeard was on the Whitebeard Pirates when Moria was coming up in the Great Pirate Era. Now, I must say, we know that, of course, Moria said no to Blackbeard. Same way Doflamingo asked Crocodile, he said no as well. And it was pretty interesting how Moria had some anger towards Absalom being killed. It probably was PTSD because Moria had so many of his crew members killed. To see one of his crew members finally be killed, one of his only lively crew members with Perona be killed, that was probably really upsetting. Now, of course, Shade of the Rain coming in there slashing him is interesting as well because that's a swordsman. And we know Moria could likely have some swordsmanship ties because he's a Kozuki member. And I wonder where Oda's gonna go with that. Imagine Moria was nerfed the entire time. He actually has a different fighting style with a sword, not just his Shadow Delve Fruit. Man, oh man, that would be crazy. And I also gotta mention this. There's so many ties to Moria actually being foreshadowed being a Kozuki member. Look at Perona. Perona looks pretty similar to Otoko. And that could be a Shimutsu clan connection. That could be connected to Zoro, and Zoro, Perona, and Miyako. We all saw that during the time skip. So it makes sense if Perona was adopted by Moria during Wano. There's so many different directions that Oda can go with Moria's plotline because of just one name, this Kozuki Moria name. And I must say, Moria, we've seen him in Wano, but who would have thought that he's actually from Wano? That is a cliffhanger, a plot twist that nobody expected. Now, we know that Moria escaped Pirate Island Beehive, and it's now the final saga where his Kozuki clan has taken back Wano through Momonosuke. Nico will bring this guy on Luffy's side, especially after hearing Luffy beat Kaido. But also we have to acknowledge Cross-Guild and the Warlord Yonko crew that will aid Luffy in the final war. Moria hype is not dead. I know that's no pun intended. It's actually the biggest since Thriller Bark, which some believe could be connected to God Valley, and a rock zombie could return. It would be epic like Uchiha Madara returning if Moria was able to bring Roxas back, if Thriller Bark was actually connected to God Valley, because we know that Roxas is actually from God Valley. That's his home island. And I wonder if Oda's gonna go that direction, but all I know is the Moria hype will continue and the Moria haters will be seething. Now, one more thing I want to talk about is Moria's power level. Let's be honest here, guys. Luffy is pretty much Yonko level. So many characters that got so much stronger. Moria needs to get stronger if he's gonna hang with these final saga monsters. Right now, I personally believe that Moria, post time skip, is Yonko Commander level. And when I say Yonko Commander level, I'm talking about like Jack level. I don't see Moria being higher than Jack. If Moria has to get some of his hockey back, if he's able to use hockey, I can definitely see him being Jack level. But that's being nice. That's me being generous to you, Moria, just because you fought Kaido back in the days. If I'm being completely honest, from what the series has shown, you're probably flying 6 level if I have to keep it all the way real. Now, I feel like if he gets back to his prime level, please Oda make this happen. We can maybe see Moria reach Queen to King level, which would definitely be valuable in the future. But it's going to be really tough to see if Oda does that. And I think if Oda has the plot line of Kozuki Moria having a sword with his Shadow Delve Fruit, then there's maybe a chance that Oda will do it. But until then, he to me is in between Jack and around flying 6th level. He's not that strong, and I had to keep it real with you guys. But he will be important in the story. Who cares about power strength right now? Moria's name is Kozuki, guys. Kozuki, the guys who, of course, pretty much built the Poneglyph, stone Poneglyph. So yeah, the hype is real.